Do you really control your life? Or are you just playing a role in a game designed by others? You might believe that your choices, your efforts, and your intelligence dictate your success. But what if I told you that the world doesn't work that way? The harsh truth is that power is not given to those who deserve it, it is taken by those who understand how the game is played. Think about it, why do some people, despite being less skilled or intelligent, always seem to get ahead? Why do certain individuals command influence, dominate industries, and stay at the top while others, who work just as hard, remain unnoticed? It's because power isn't about fairness, it's about perception, strategy, and action. For centuries, the rules of power have remained the same, yet most people still fail to see them. From CEOs who build empires, to politicians who rewrite history, to influencers who capture global attention, success is not about luck, nor is it just about hard work. It's about knowing when to stay silent and when to strike, when to be predictable and when to be chaotic, when to form alliances and when to act alone. Those who fail to understand these principles will always be pawns in a game they don't even realize they're playing. In this video, we're going deep into the hidden mechanics of success, power, and influence. We'll break down how the world truly works, not how you were taught it works, and expose the strategies used by the most successful figures of our time. Whether you want to rise in your career, build financial freedom, gain respect, or simply stop being overlooked, these are the lessons that separate those who lead from those who follow. Stay with me until the very end, because every second of this video contains insights that can change the way you think about power forever. And before we get started, take a second to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a game-changing video like this. If you enjoy the content and find value in what we're sharing, consider dropping a super thanks donation. Your support helps us keep creating content that unlocks the real rules of the game for those who are ready to play. Now, let's dive in. Most people go through life believing they're in control. They wake up every day, make choices, work hard, and assume their success or failure is entirely up to them. But what if that's just an illusion? What if, instead of being in control, they are unknowingly following a script written by someone else? This is the uncomfortable truth that few people realize. Society operates not on merit, fairness, or justice, but on hidden power dynamics that dictate who rises and who remains stagnant. Think about how society conditions us from an early age. We are taught that if we study hard, work diligently, and stay morally upright, we will be rewarded. Our parents, teachers, and leaders encourage us to believe that effort leads to success. But reality tells a different story. There are plenty of brilliant, hardworking people struggling to make ends meet, while others who are neither the smartest nor the most skilled manage to climb to the top effortlessly. If meritocracy were real, wouldn't intelligence and hard work always lead to success? Clearly, something else is at play. Niccolo Machiavelli recognized this over 500 years ago. He understood that power is never granted based on fairness or effort. It is taken by those who understand the game. The world does not operate as an equal playing field where everyone gets what they deserve. Instead, it is a battlefield where a select few dictate the rules while the majority follow without realizing they're being controlled. This is true in business, politics, relationships, and even on social media. Look at any major industry. In the corporate world, promotions and leadership positions do not always go to the hardest workers. Instead, they go to those who know how to navigate office politics, build alliances, and control perception. A talented but passive employee may spend years working tirelessly, hoping to be recognized, only to watch a less competent but more strategic colleague rise above them. The same pattern plays out in entertainment. Many actors and musicians are extraordinarily gifted, yet they struggle to gain fame, while others who may not even have half their talent dominate the industry because they understand branding, networking, and influence. This is not to say that competence is irrelevant. It is useful, but it is not the determining factor in who succeeds. The determining factor is strategy. Machiavelli argued that those who understand human nature and power dynamics can manipulate the game to their advantage. Success is not about what is fair, it is about perception and positioning. Take a moment to consider social media. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are driven not by talent but by the ability to command attention. The most popular influencers are not always the ones with the best content but the ones who know how to create controversy, control narratives, and maintain engagement. A person with deep insights but no strategic presence will be overlooked, while someone with a fraction of that knowledge but a mastery of visibility will dominate the space. This idea extends into personal relationships as well. Have you ever noticed that in dating, the most devoted, kind-hearted individuals often find themselves ignored or taken for granted, while those who maintain an air of mystery and confidence seem to attract attention effortlessly? That is because people respond to perception more than reality. Someone who understands emotional dynamics can position themselves as valuable and desirable, while someone who relies solely on honesty and kindness might not get the same results. The question, then, is simple: are you playing the game, or are you being played? The people who shape history, build empires, and leave legacies do not wait for recognition. They write their own narratives. Consider Steve Jobs. When he was forced out of Apple, many assumed his career was over. But instead of accepting defeat, he repositioned himself, built a compelling comeback story, and returned stronger than ever. He understood that the world does not just reward talent, it rewards those who control their own story. Another powerful example is Julius Caesar. Unlike other Roman leaders who relied purely on military strength, Caesar understood the power of public perception. He strategically positioned himself as a champion of the people, used alliances to strengthen his influence, and controlled narratives so effectively that he rose to unprecedented power. His mastery of social strategy ensured his dominance long before he ever took the battlefield. On a more relatable scale, think about job interviews. Two candidates might have the same qualifications, but the one who understands social psychology, who knows how to present themselves confidently, establish rapport, and frame their experience effectively, will almost always get the job. The employer isn't just looking at raw skill, they're judging based on impression, confidence, and perceived value. This is not manipulation in the negative sense, it is understanding how human beings operate. Machiavelli did not advocate for cruelty or deceit, he advocated for awareness. He argued that those who do not recognize the hidden rules of power are destined to be used by those who do. The world does not reward the passive, it rewards those who act with intention. The greatest trick the powerful ever played was convincing people that the game does not exist. They want you to believe that working hard and waiting patiently will lead to success because that keeps you predictable, obedient, and easy to control. Meanwhile, those in power are constantly strategizing, making moves, and ensuring that they stay on top. So, how do you stop being a pawn? The first step is recognizing the game for what it is. Understand that power is not about fairness but about perception and positioning. If you want to advance in your career, relationships, or any area of life, you must stop waiting to be chosen and start positioning yourself strategically. Control your image. People do not see reality, they see what they are shown. Craft a personal brand that communicates strength, confidence, and value. If you do not define yourself, others will do it for you, and often to your disadvantage. Build alliances. No one rises alone. The most powerful people in the world succeed because they surround themselves with strong networks. Do not just look for friendships, look for strategic partnerships where both sides benefit. Be adaptable. The world is constantly changing, and those who cling to rigid beliefs about how things should work will always lose to those who adjust their strategies as needed. And most importantly, act. Hesitation is the greatest enemy of success. Opportunities do not wait, and those who take decisive action before others do are the ones who rise to the top. The difference between those who control their destinies and those who are controlled by others is awareness. If you have been operating under the assumption that the world is fair and that effort alone will lead to success, you have been playing by rules designed to keep you in place. The moment you start seeing the hidden structures of power, you can begin using them to your advantage. The question is no longer whether the game exists, it does. The real question is whether you will continue being a piece on the board or start making moves that put you in control. Society operates like a grand chessboard, where the vast majority unknowingly play predetermined roles, while a small group of individuals understand the mechanics of power and manipulate the game to their advantage. People generally fall into one of three categories: the strategists, the pawns, and the lost rebels. Each of these roles dictates how an individual interacts with power, success, and influence. The difference between success and mediocrity isn't just about effort. It's about understanding which role you play and how to maneuver strategically. The strategists, or rule makers, are the ones who truly understand the game. They see beyond the illusion of meritocracy and recognize that power is not something awarded to the deserving, but something taken by those who position themselves effectively. They know that perception matters more than reality and that controlling narratives is the key to staying ahead. These individuals are often not the smartest or the most talented, but they are the most strategic. They are the politicians who craft compelling public images, the CEOs who build monopolies, and the media figures who dictate cultural narratives. Take Steve Jobs, for example. He wasn't the best engineer at Apple, nor was he the one doing the actual coding or designing. What set him apart was his understanding of perception, branding, and influence. When he was fired from Apple in the mid-80s, most people assumed that was the end of his career. But Jobs understood the long game. Instead of quietly fading away, he carefully built a narrative around his return. He started new ventures, honed his leadership style, and re-entered Apple as a visionary, not just an executive. By the time he returned, he had positioned himself as the indispensable leader who would revolutionize technology. This wasn't luck or raw talent, it was strategy. Julius Caesar operated in a similar way. While other Roman generals relied solely on military strength, Caesar understood that the real key to power lay in controlling the public's perception. He made sure that his victories were publicized in a way that made him seem like Rome's inevitable leader. His famous decision to cross the Rubicon was not just a military move, it was a carefully calculated strategy to position himself as the only possible ruler of Rome. Even after his assassination, his legacy and influence endured because he had mastered the game of perception. On a more modern scale, look at Oprah Winfrey. There have been many talented talk show hosts, but Oprah understood something deeper. Controlling the narrative of one's own story is the most powerful tool a person can have. She didn't just conduct interviews, she shaped conversations. She built alliances with powerful figures, created a brand that was synonymous with authenticity and wisdom, and leveraged that brand to transition from television to a global media empire. Her success wasn't just about talent, it was about understanding how to navigate influence and power structures. Then there are the pawns, the hardworking majority who never question the system. These individuals genuinely believe that effort alone leads to success. They follow the rules, trust authority, and assume that if they just work hard enough, recognition and rewards will come. The problem is, the system isn't designed to reward hard work alone. It rewards strategic positioning. Pawns often spend decades in the same job, hoping their loyalty and diligence will be noticed, only to watch others rise above them. They are the employees who work late nights while their less hardworking but more socially adept colleagues get promoted. They are the dedicated individuals who believe that fairness will eventually prevail, failing to recognize that success is not given but taken. A perfect example of this is the corporate world. Consider two employees in the same company. One works tirelessly, meets deadlines, and never causes trouble. The other is strategic networking with the right people, making their accomplishments visible, and positioning themselves as a leader. When promotion time comes, the second person is the one who advances, while the first one is left wondering why their effort wasn't enough. This is not because hard work is meaningless, but because it is only valuable when paired with strategic awareness. Pawns are also evident in politics. Many voters passionately support leaders, believing their rhetoric and promises, never questioning the underlying power structures that dictate policy. They believe that if they just align with the right ideology or work within the system, change will happen. But those who control power rarely play by the same rules they impose on the majority. And then there are the lost rebels, people who see the flaws in the system but don't know how to navigate them effectively. These individuals recognize that something is wrong but approach the problem with emotion instead of strategy. They challenge authority head-on without leverage, leading to their downfall. Instead of working within the system to create meaningful change, they attempt to break it impulsively and end up crushed. History is full of lost rebels who tried to fight the game but failed because they lacked a clear strategy. Many revolutionaries, whistleblowers, and activists have fallen into this category. Their intentions may have been noble, but they underestimated the power of those they were up against. A historical example is the Occupy Wall Street movement. While it raised awareness of economic inequality, it lacked clear leadership, concrete goals, and a long-term strategy. As a result, it faded without enacting significant systemic change. A more recent example would be individuals who attempt to challenge large corporations or industries without proper backing. Social media is full of influencers or public figures who try to expose powerful entities, only to find themselves blacklisted, sued, or discredited, without leverage, influence, or a carefully planned approach. Rebellion is ineffective. What separates the strategists from the lost rebels is the ability to think long-term and understand how power truly works. The strategist does not seek immediate victories, they position themselves for sustained success. They recognize that true influence requires alliances, perception control, and strategic patience. Consider the difference between Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights activists who were less successful. King did not simply fight against the system, he worked within it to build a movement that could not be ignored. He understood media optics, crafted speeches that resonated across ideological divides, and formed alliances that gave his cause momentum. He was not just a rebel, he was a strategist. That's why his impact endured. The lesson in all of this is clear. Power is not about being the best, the smartest, or the hardest working. It's about understanding how the game is played and positioning yourself accordingly. If you find yourself working tirelessly without results, it may be time to stop and ask, am I playing the game? Or am I being played? To transition from a pawn to a strategist, one must first recognize the hidden structures of power and influence. This means controlling perception, building alliances, and mastering adaptability. It means understanding that merit alone is not enough, one must also create the right image and leverage relationships effectively. For those who have spent their lives as pawns, the shift in mindset can be difficult. It requires letting go of the comforting idea that hard work alone guarantees success. It requires developing the ability to read social dynamics, identify key players, and move with intention rather than waiting for recognition. It means studying history, learning from successful strategists, and applying those lessons to modern life. Ultimately, the game will always exist. The question is not whether the rules are fair, but whether you will learn to navigate them or remain at the mercy of those who do. Those who master the game don't wait for success, they position themselves so that success is inevitable. Public perception is one of the most powerful tools anyone can leverage. Yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. People like to believe that success is built solely on competence and effort. But the reality is that perception often outweighs actual skill. The world does not reward the most talented individuals. It rewards those who know how to present themselves strategically. Controlling how others see you is not about deception, it's about understanding the psychological mechanisms that influence decision-making and using them to your advantage. Think about James Bond. He is not necessarily the strongest, fastest, or even the most intelligent character in any given situation. Yet he is always perceived as the one in control. Why? Because he carries himself with confidence, composure, and an aura of mystery. His reputation precedes him, and that perception influences how people react to him. Whether in business, politics, or social settings, the way people perceive you will often dictate how they interact with you. If you appear weak, hesitant, or uncertain, people will treat you accordingly. If you appear powerful, composed, and strategic, they will assume you belong at the top. This principle extends beyond fictional characters into real-life leadership. Steve Jobs is a perfect case study. When he was first at Apple, he was undoubtedly brilliant but lacked the strategic awareness to control his public image effectively. His leadership style was often abrasive, and despite his genius, he was eventually pushed out of the company he founded. Most people in that situation would have faded into obscurity. But Jobs understood that success was not just about innovation, it was about perception. Instead of fighting against the decision or attempting to prove his worth through traditional means, he rebranded himself. He founded Next, a company that ultimately wasn't a huge commercial success but was instrumental in refining his vision and maintaining his relevance in the tech world. Simultaneously, he acquired Pixar and transformed it into a storytelling powerhouse. By the time Apple was struggling and needed him back, He had positioned himself not just as a tech innovator but as a visionary leader who understood the intersection of technology, business, and culture. His return to Apple wasn't just a comeback, it was a carefully crafted narrative of redemption and reinvention. The world didn't just see Jobs as a CEO, they saw him as a revolutionary force. This ability to control perception is why some individuals rise while others, who may be just as skilled or intelligent, remain in obscurity. It is why politicians spend more time on public relations than policymaking. It is why certain business leaders, despite making critical mistakes, continue to command respect and influence. It is also why celebrities who understand branding maintain their careers while others fade away. One of the most misunderstood aspects of success is the idea that if you do good work, people will naturally recognize it. That is rarely the case. The world does not operate like a school system where good grades lead to automatic rewards. Instead, success is largely dictated by how effectively you position yourself in the minds of others. This does not mean being dishonest. It means understanding how influence works. If two people with identical qualifications apply for a job, the one who presents themselves more confidently, controls their body language, and speaks with authority is far more likely to get the offer. It is not necessarily fair, but it is how human psychology functions. Look at how high-profile figures craft their images. Elon Musk, for example, is as much a master of perception as he is of engineering and business. He knows how to create excitement, how to frame narratives in a way that captures attention, and how to position himself as both a risk-taker and a visionary. Whether or not people agree with his strategies, they pay attention to him. And in a world driven by attention, that alone is a source of power. Consider social media influencers. Many of them are not necessarily experts in their fields, but they understand how to build a brand. They curate their online presence meticulously, choosing what to showcase and what to withhold. They engage with audiences strategically, ensuring that they maintain an image of authority, relatability, or exclusivity, depending on what best serves their goals. People follow them not necessarily because they are the most knowledgeable but because they present themselves as leaders in their space. The entertainment industry is full of examples of how perception trumps reality. Some of the biggest pop stars today are not the most talented vocalists or musicians, but they have mastered the art of branding. They understand how to create a persona, generate intrigue, and make themselves indispensable in their industry. Meanwhile, there are countless incredibly talented musicians who never break into the mainstream because they fail to package themselves in a way that resonates with the public. Sports figures also understand this game. Muhammad Ali was not just a phenomenal boxer, he was a master of self-promotion. He built an image of confidence, fearlessness, and charisma that made him larger than life. He controlled his narrative, ensuring that he was not just remembered for his victories but for his personality and influence. Conor McGregor has done the same in the MMA world. Even when he loses, his persona remains intact because he has crafted a perception of himself as a fighter who never backs down. This keeps him relevant and ensures that his brand remains strong. Even in everyday life, these principles apply. If you walk into a room and carry yourself with confidence, people will assume you belong there. If you hesitate, doubt yourself, or downplay your abilities, others will take their cues from that. This is why successful negotiators always appear sure of themselves, even if they are uncertain. It is why top executives practice power poses before important meetings. It is why politicians rehearse their speeches and body language to project authority. Human beings are wired to respond to confidence, certainty, and well-crafted narratives. This also explains why rebranding is so crucial. If someone makes a mistake or suffers a setback, their ability to recover is largely dependent on how they reshape public perception. Celebrities who face scandals often hire crisis management teams to craft a redemption arc for them. Companies that experience failures rebrand their messaging to shift focus away from past mistakes. Politicians who lose elections reframe their losses as learning experiences that make them stronger candidates in the future. Steve Jobs' story is a prime example of how rebranding can turn failure into success. When he returned to Apple, he didn't just introduce new products, he completely changed how people perceived the company. Apple went from being seen as a struggling computer manufacturer to a company that represented innovation, creativity, and design excellence. That shift in perception was just as critical to Apple's revival as any technological advancements. The same applies on an individual level. If you are stuck in a career rut, struggling to get recognition, or finding it difficult to gain influence, the first step is to analyze how others perceive you. Are you positioning yourself as a leader? Are you controlling your own narrative? Or are you letting others define you? Changing how people see you is often more effective than working harder and hoping for recognition. Perception is power. Those who understand this rise to the top, while those who ignore it remain frustrated by the lack of recognition. The world does not see the truth, it sees what is presented to it. Those who master this principle do not just succeed, they shape industries, influence cultures, and leave lasting legacies. Power is never achieved in isolation. Throughout history, those who rise to the top, whether in business, politics, or social influence, do so not by sheer individual effort but through the relationships they cultivate. Networking, when done correctly, is a form of strategic alliance building. Yet, many people misunderstand how real networking works. They assume it's about meeting as many people as possible, handing out business cards, or sending cold emails asking for favors. In reality, successful networking is not about collecting contacts but about creating mutually beneficial relationships. One of the biggest mistakes people make in networking is approaching it with a purely self-serving mindset. They think of it as a numbers game, assuming that the more people they reach out to, the higher their chances of success. But networking is not about quantity, it's about value. Too often, people ask for help without offering anything in return. This approach rarely works because people are naturally inclined to help those who contribute to their goals, not those who simply make requests. If someone reaches out asking for a job opportunity, mentorship, or investment without presenting any value, they are more likely to be ignored than assisted. This is why the most effective networkers always approach relationships with a value-first mindset. They understand that the best way to build strong alliances is to make themselves useful to others before expecting anything in return. Think about how business leaders operate. Successful CEOs don't build networks by begging for meetings, they build credibility, demonstrate their expertise, and offer insights that others find valuable. They position themselves as problem solvers rather than people looking for handouts. In politics, alliances dictate who gains power and who fades into irrelevance. Leaders don't rise solely on their policies or intelligence. They rise because they know how to form strategic relationships with influential people who can open doors. Consider the US presidency. No candidate wins by simply being the best choice. They win by securing endorsements, forming coalitions, and ensuring that the right people support them at the right time. Every major political movement is built on the foundation of strategic alliances. The same principle applies in business. Think of how tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, and Google operate. None of these companies succeeded solely because of their products. They succeeded because they built relationships with key investors, media outlets, and strategic partners. Steve Jobs formed critical partnerships with industry leaders to position Apple as an innovator. Bill Gates leveraged his connections to establish Microsoft as the dominant software provider. Elon Musk, despite his polarizing persona, understands how to align himself with influential figures who can help him push his ventures forward. These leaders don't just focus on what they can take, they focus on what they can offer, making themselves indispensable to those around them. Even in entertainment, alliances play a crucial role. The biggest stars in Hollywood don't just land roles because of their talent. They succeed because they know how to cultivate relationships with directors, producers, and executives. Those who build strong industry connections get consistent opportunities, while equally talented individuals who lack those connections struggle to break through. This is why actors and musicians often align themselves with influential mentors and collaborators who can elevate their careers. Socially, the same rules apply. People naturally gravitate towards those who bring value to their lives, whether that value comes in the form of emotional support, shared resources, or meaningful connections. The most well-connected individuals in any social circle are those who understand the dynamics of reciprocity. They don't just take from their relationships, they contribute, making themselves a person that others want to be around. The friend who always shows up when needed, makes introductions, and provides support is the one who naturally builds a strong network. Creating beneficial relationships requires a deep understanding of human psychology. People are more likely to help those who make them feel important, valued, and understood. This is why the most successful networkers are not necessarily the most charismatic or extroverted, but the ones who make others feel heard and appreciated. When approaching networking, instead of thinking, "What can I get?" the better question to ask is, "What can I give?" Those who adopt this mindset build alliances that last because they cultivate genuine goodwill. One of the most effective networking strategies is to identify what others need and find ways to provide it before asking for anything. This could be as simple as offering insights, making introductions, or sharing resources. When people see you as someone who contributes, they are far more likely to help you when you eventually need something. This principle is at the core of successful business relationships. Investors back entrepreneurs who demonstrate value before seeking funding. Employers hire candidates who prove their expertise before asking for a job. Influencers collaborate with those who bring something to the table rather than those who just seek exposure. Another key to building strategic alliances is knowing when to nurture relationships without an immediate goal. Many people only reach out to their network when they need something, which makes their relationships feel transactional. The most influential individuals maintain their connections over time, offering support even when they don't immediately need anything in return. This builds trust and ensures that when they do need assistance, people are willing to help because the relationship is based on more than just a one-time favor. Strategic networking also involves positioning oneself in the right environments. If you want to build relationships with successful people, you need to be where successful people are. This means attending industry events, joining professional organizations, and actively participating in spaces where high-value connections are made. Proximity matters. Those who deliberately place themselves in rooms with influential people have far greater chances of forming valuable relationships than those who rely on chance encounters. One example of strategic networking done right is Warren Buffett. He built his empire not just through financial expertise but through carefully cultivated relationships with business leaders, investors, and policymakers. He aligned himself with people who shared his vision and made himself valuable to them. His partnerships with figures like Charlie Munger weren't just based on personal rapport. They were built on mutual respect and aligned interests. Another example is Barack Obama. Long before he became president, he built a network of political allies who helped propel his career forward. He understood that policy ideas alone wouldn't win elections. Building coalitions with the right people would. His ability to connect with influential donors, grassroots organizers, and media figures played a critical role in his rise to the White House. Even in day-to-day professional life, the importance of strategic alliances cannot be overstated. Employees who build strong relationships with colleagues and supervisors are more likely to get promotions, access to new opportunities, and professional mentorship. Entrepreneurs who foster meaningful connections with investors, customers, and industry leaders are more likely to scale their businesses successfully. The ability to form alliances is what separates those who merely work hard from those who climb the ladder. It's also important to recognize that alliances are not about manipulating people, they are about understanding how collaboration works. The best relationships are built on mutual benefit. Those who approach networking with a genuine desire to contribute will always build stronger, longer-lasting connections than those who view it as a means to an end. Ultimately, power is a networked phenomenon. No one achieves success alone. Those who understand this and actively build relationships with the right people gain access to opportunities that others never even know exist. The world is filled with talented individuals who never reach their full potential simply because they fail to cultivate the right connections. On the other hand, those who master the art of strategic alliance building not only rise faster but stay at the top longer because they have a strong support system behind them. Those who fail to recognize the importance of alliances remain at a disadvantage. They believe that individual effort is enough and underestimate how much influence relationships have on success. The truth is, skill and hard work are necessary but not sufficient. Without the right alliances, even the most talented individuals will struggle to gain influence. The most successful people in any field don't just work hard, they work smart by surrounding themselves with the right allies. Success in any field is not just about talent, intelligence, or even effort, it's about adaptability. The ability to adjust, pivot, and respond strategically to change determines who rises and who fades into irrelevance. The world is not static, it constantly shifts. And those who cling to rigid strategies inevitably fall behind. History is full of individuals, companies, and even entire civilizations that failed because they refused to adapt. Meanwhile, those who recognized when to change course, when to assert themselves, and when to step back strategically have been the ones who have maintained long-term power. Adaptability is not about being passive or reactive, it's about understanding that different situations require different approaches. The most successful leaders, businesspeople, and strategists do not lock themselves into one way of thinking. They adjust based on circumstances, understanding that rigidity is a weakness. Those who thrive in power understand that what works today might not work tomorrow. Just as animals evolve to survive in changing environments, those in leadership positions must evolve with shifting political, economic, and social landscapes. One of the most striking examples of adaptability is Elon Musk. Regardless of how one feels about him, there is no denying that he has mastered the art of keeping both his competitors and the public off balance. Musk does not operate with predictable business strategies. Instead, he constantly shifts narratives, makes unexpected moves, and forces his opponents to react rather than lead. He has pivoted from PayPal to Tesla, from Tesla to SpaceX, from SpaceX to Neuralink, and now to AI-driven technologies, all while maintaining control of his narrative and influence. His unpredictability is not randomness, it is calculated. When Tesla was facing financial difficulties, instead of playing it safe, he doubled down on high-risk moves like pushing mass production of electric cars at a time when the market was still skeptical. When competitors expected Tesla to follow traditional automotive industry rules, Musk changed the game entirely by making Tesla more than a car company. He turned it into a technology and energy company. This kind of adaptability forces competitors into a defensive position. Instead of reacting to what others are doing, Musk sets his own agenda, making it difficult for traditional automakers or space exploration companies to keep up. He doesn't play by their rules, he constantly redefines them. This is the essence of strategic adaptability, not just reacting to changes but actively shaping them. Those who wait for certainty before making a move often find themselves left behind. The business world is full of companies that failed to adapt and paid the price. Blockbuster was once the dominant force in home entertainment, but when streaming services emerged, it failed to recognize the need to pivot. Instead of adapting to the digital revolution, it clung to its outdated model, assuming that customers would always prefer physical rentals. Meanwhile, Netflix continuously adjusted, first with DVDs by mail, then streaming, then original content, and now artificial intelligence-driven recommendation engines. Blockbuster is now a relic of the past, while Netflix remains a dominant force. Kodak suffered a similar fate. Despite inventing the first digital camera, the company resisted shifting away from film because it feared cannibalizing its existing business. In contrast, companies like Apple have consistently embraced change, reimagining themselves from a computer company to a phone, entertainment, and services giant. Apple's success is not just due to innovation but its ability to anticipate shifts in consumer behavior and adapt accordingly. Adaptability is not just a corporate necessity, it is a fundamental skill for personal success as well. In leadership, timing is everything. There are moments when being assertive is necessary, but there are also moments when diplomacy is the smarter move. Great leaders do not blindly charge forward, they recognize when to push aggressively and when to retreat and regroup. A rigid leader who insists on one approach for every situation is bound to fail. Machiavelli, though often misinterpreted as advocating ruthlessness at all times, actually emphasized the importance of knowing when to be feared and when to be loved. The truly powerful are those who can read the room, understand the stakes, and adjust accordingly. Think of athletes who remain dominant for long careers. LeBron James is not still at the top of his game because he plays the same way he did when he entered the NBA. He has changed his style, refined his skill set, and adapted to different roles on different teams. Tom Brady did not become the greatest quarterback of all time by sticking to one style of play. He adjusted to new offensive systems, new teammates, and even changes in his physical condition as he aged. The best competitors are those who can reinvent themselves while maintaining their core strengths. Politics is another arena where adaptability is crucial. Barack Obama's rise to the presidency was not just due to his charisma or policies. It was his ability to adjust to the rapidly changing political climate. He knew how to speak to different audiences, when to lean into grassroots activism, and when to appear as a centrist to appeal to broader voters. Politicians who fail to read the public's shifting moods and adapt their messaging accordingly often find themselves losing influence. The downfall of many political figures often comes when they fail to recognize when the winds have changed and continue pushing a strategy that no longer works. On a more personal level, adaptability plays a critical role in career success. The workforce today is vastly different from what it was a decade ago. And those who fail to keep up with trends find themselves irrelevant. Many industries are being reshaped by automation and artificial intelligence, and employees who resist learning new skills will be replaced by those who embrace change. The most successful professionals are those who continuously evolve, whether by learning new technologies, expanding their expertise, or pivoting to new industries when necessary. Adaptability is also key in relationships. Social dynamics are constantly shifting, and those who refuse to change often struggle in both personal and professional interactions. The way people communicate, form connections, and navigate conflict has evolved with the rise of digital communication and social media. Those who insist on rigid, outdated approaches often find themselves disconnected from reality. Survival in a fast-changing world requires the ability to reassess strategies, adjust to new environments, and recognize when old methods are no longer effective. Those who succeed in maintaining power, influence, and success do so because they are willing to evolve. They are not attached to any one method, they are attached to winning. They do not see change as a threat but as an opportunity. The truth is, adaptability is the single greatest insurance against failure. It is what separates those who thrive from those who are left behind. The ability to pivot, readjust, and approach situations with a flexible mindset is what makes leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators last while others fade into obscurity. Those who understand that success is not about sticking to a fixed plan but about adjusting the plan when necessary will always come out ahead. Success is not just about talent, intelligence, or effort, it's about strategy. The world operates in a way that favors those who understand power dynamics and how to navigate them. Many people live their lives as pawns, following the rules they are given, believing that hard work and good intentions will naturally lead to success. But history and experience prove otherwise. Those who remain passive, predictable, and transparent in their strategies will always be controlled by those who are more strategic, more adaptable, and more decisive. To avoid being used as a pawn, there are 3 essential rules. Keep your plans secret, be unpredictable, and act decisively. These rules are not about manipulation or deception but about understanding the realities of power and influence. Keeping your plans secret is one of the most fundamental strategies in gaining and maintaining control. If others know your intentions, they can either sabotage your efforts or use your plans for their own advantage. The most successful people in any field do not reveal their full strategy until the right moment. This is not about dishonesty, it's about protecting your position and maintaining control over your own narrative. Consider how major corporations operate. Apple, for example, is notorious for its secrecy around product development. Before a major iPhone release, very little concrete information leaks to the public. This secrecy creates anticipation, but more importantly, it prevents competitors from copying their innovations before they launch. If Apple were to release its entire product roadmap years in advance, companies like Samsung or Google would have ample time to counter those plans, making Apple's innovations far less impactful. The same principle applies to individuals in any competitive environment. If someone announces their career ambitions too early, they may face unnecessary obstacles from colleagues who feel threatened. If an entrepreneur shares too much about their startup before it's fully formed, competitors can rush to execute similar ideas, stealing the advantage. Keeping plans secret doesn't mean operating in isolation, it means being strategic about what information you share and when. Great leaders and strategists know how to control information flow to their advantage. Being unpredictable is just as crucial. Predictability is one of the greatest weaknesses a person can have in any competitive setting. If others can easily anticipate your next move, they can control and manipulate you. Predictable people are easy to counteract because their actions are telegraphed in advance. This is why some of the most successful figures in history, whether in business, sports, or politics, have thrived on unpredictability. Elon Musk is a modern example of how unpredictability can be a powerful weapon. Unlike traditional CEOs who operate with carefully crafted PR strategies, Musk constantly shifts his approach. One day he's talking about Tesla, the next day he's joking about cryptocurrency, and the day after that he's making bold claims about colonizing Mars. This unpredictability keeps both his competitors and the public guessing. People don't know what his next move will be, and that gives him an advantage. By being unpredictable, he forces others to react to him rather than the other way around. This creates a power dynamic where he controls the conversation and the market's perception of him. This principle also applies in negotiations. If you always react the same way in business deals, people will take advantage of your predictability. Skilled negotiators never reveal all their intentions up front, and they don't stick to a single style. Sometimes they are aggressive, sometimes they are passive. Their unpredictability forces the other party to constantly second-guess their assumptions, which creates leverage. Being adaptable and shifting tactics based on the situation is a crucial component of power. In social settings, unpredictability is equally effective. Take dating, for example. People who are too predictable in their communication patterns can come across as uninteresting or easy to take for granted. On the other hand, those who keep an air of mystery, who don't always respond immediately, and who break patterns in unexpected but intriguing ways tend to be more attractive. This is not about playing games, it's about maintaining an element of surprise that keeps people engaged. The third and most critical rule is acting decisively. Power doesn't belong to those who wait, it belongs to those who move quickly when opportunity presents itself. The ability to make bold, calculated decisions before others react is what separates those who lead from those who follow. Hesitation is often the greatest enemy of success. Many people miss out on major opportunities not because they lack skill or intelligence, but because they wait too long to act. In business, the most successful entrepreneurs are those who move fast. Jeff Bezos built Amazon into an empire by constantly pushing for expansion and innovation without waiting for absolute certainty. While traditional retailers hesitated to embrace e-commerce fully, Bezos aggressively scaled Amazon, making decisive moves that his competitors were too slow to counter. The result? Amazon dominates industries that companies with decades more experience failed to capture because they hesitated. The same principle applies in personal careers. Many people find themselves stuck in the same job, waiting for the right moment to ask for a promotion, start a business, or switch careers. Meanwhile, those who make bold moves, even in the face of uncertainty, are the ones who create opportunities for themselves. A perfect example of decisive action is Mark Zuckerberg's early days with Facebook. When he saw the potential of the platform, he didn't hesitate, he moved aggressively, securing investors, growing the user base, and outmaneuvering competitors before they had a chance to react. Even in sports, acting decisively is a key trait of champions. Basketball players like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant built their legacies on taking game-winning shots in critical moments. They didn't hesitate or second-guess themselves. They understood that in high-pressure situations, the window of opportunity is small, and those who hesitate are left behind. The same applies in politics. Leaders who make swift, calculated decisions in times of crisis gain control, while those who hesitate lose credibility. Decisive action does not mean reckless action. There is a difference between taking risks and taking foolish risks. The key is making decisions based on available information, trusting one's instincts, and not allowing fear of failure to cause paralysis. Those who constantly wait for the perfect moment rarely achieve anything significant. Opportunities do not wait, and those who hesitate too long find themselves watching others seize what could have been theirs. These three rules, keeping plans secret, being unpredictable, and acting decisively, form the foundation of power in any competitive environment. Those who master these principles rise to the top, while those who ignore them remain stuck in mediocrity. Every successful leader, entrepreneur, or strategist understands these dynamics and applies them in different ways. The world does not reward passivity or transparency. It rewards those who understand how to control their own narratives. Keep others guessing. and move quickly when it matters. For those who feel stuck or powerless, the first step is recognizing where they are giving away control. Are they sharing too much about their ambitions? Are they too predictable in their actions, making it easy for others to manipulate them? Are they hesitating when opportunities arise instead of seizing them? Making small adjustments in these areas can lead to massive shifts in influence and success. The game of power is always being played, whether one acknowledges it or not. Some people are merely pieces on the board, moved around by others, but those who learn these rules are the ones who start making the moves themselves. Those who understand that secrecy protects their plans, unpredictability keeps them in control, and decisive action propels them forward are the ones who no longer live as pawns, they become the players who dictate the game. Power is not something handed to people based on merit alone. It is taken, shaped, and maintained by those who understand how to navigate the complex web of perception, strategy, and influence. Today's world operates under the same fundamental principles that Machiavelli identified centuries ago. The individuals who thrive, CEOs, politicians, influencers, and cultural leaders, do so because they understand the hidden rules of the game. Those who fail to grasp these dynamics find themselves outmaneuvered, overlooked, and ultimately powerless. The key to success in any field is recognizing how power actually works and applying these strategies effectively. Look at how modern CEOs operate. Jeff Bezos, for example, did not simply build Amazon through technical innovation alone. His real genius lies in his ability to strategically position himself and his company in ways that forced competitors into defensive positions. When Amazon was growing, most traditional retailers dismissed online shopping as a niche market. Bezos understood something: they didn't. Speed and market dominance mattered more than short-term profitability. He aggressively reinvested revenue into expansion, building infrastructure that made it impossible for competitors to catch up. While other companies focused on quarterly profits, Bezos played the long game, creating an ecosystem that turned Amazon into an untouchable giant. Competitors who didn't recognize the shift in strategy were left behind, many of them collapsing under the weight of their own outdated business models. Elon Musk follows a different but equally effective approach. He uses unpredictability as a tool to control public perception and keep competitors off balance. One moment he's talking about Tesla. The next he's pushing for Mars colonization. Then he's shifting the narrative toward artificial intelligence. This keeps both investors and competitors guessing, ensuring that he remains at the center of every conversation. Unlike traditional business leaders, Musk does not follow a predictable corporate playbook. He understands that media attention is a form of currency, and by being an unpredictable force in the business world, he guarantees that his companies remain relevant. Those who try to compete with Tesla using traditional automotive strategies fail to grasp that Tesla is not just a car company, it's a brand built on Musk's ability to dominate narratives and shape public perception. Politicians also use these strategies to secure and maintain power. Take someone like Barack Obama, whose rise to the presidency was not just about policy or charisma, but about strategic alliance building. Long before he was a serious contender, he built relationships with key political figures, grassroots organizations, and media outlets that would later become essential to his success. He understood that perception shapes reality by positioning himself as a fresh, transformative leader. He created an image that resonated far beyond policy discussions. In contrast, many politicians who assume that elections are simply about presenting logical arguments fail to realize that emotion and perception drive voter behavior more than facts ever will. On the other end of the spectrum, look at Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. While she had experience, funding, and institutional support, she failed to control the broader perception battle. Donald Trump, despite having no prior political experience, understood how to dominate media narratives and tap into public emotions in a way that Clinton did not. Where she played by traditional political rules, he rewrote them. His unpredictability kept both opponents and media outlets reacting to him rather than setting their own narratives. Clinton assumed that qualifications and experience would be enough. Trump understood that perception mattered more. The result? He won the election despite being outspent, out-organized, and widely dismissed as a serious candidate. The entertainment industry operates under the same principles. The most successful celebrities are not necessarily the most talented. but the ones who master branding and narrative control. Take Kim Kardashian. Many critics dismissed her as someone famous for being famous. But that completely ignores the strategic brilliance behind her brand. She transformed media attention, whether positive or negative, into an empire. While other celebrities fought for traditional credibility, she created a new form of influence, leveraging social media to bypass old entertainment structures. Those who failed to understand this shift faded into irrelevance. While Kardashian built a billion-dollar brand, failure to understand the game of power and perception is what leads many individuals and businesses to collapse. Blockbuster is one of the most famous examples of corporate failure. At its peak, it dominated the home entertainment industry. But its executives failed to recognize that the landscape was changing. When Netflix approached Blockbuster in the early 2000s with an offer to collaborate, Blockbuster's leadership laughed them out of the room. They assumed that their dominance was permanent and that their existing business model would continue to thrive. What they didn't realize was that consumer behavior was shifting. Netflix understood this shift and adapted. Blockbuster remained rigid, and within a decade, it was gone. Kodak suffered a similar fate. Despite inventing the first digital camera, the company was too attached to its film-based business model. Instead of embracing change, Kodak resisted, hoping that their traditional market would remain stable. Meanwhile, companies like Canon and Sony adapted to digital photography trends, leaving Kodak behind. The irony is that Kodak had the technology and the talent but lacked the strategic foresight to pivot when necessary. On an individual level, many people fail in their careers not because they lack skill but because they fail to position themselves strategically. Employees who assume that hard work alone will get them promoted often find themselves passed over by those who understand office politics. Someone who simply does their job well but does not actively manage relationships, cultivate visibility, or align themselves with key decision-makers will likely remain stagnant. The workplace is not a meritocracy, it's a game of influence. And those who ignore that reality will always find themselves at a disadvantage. Even in relationships, these principles apply. People who assume that honesty and effort are all that matter often find themselves in one-sided dynamics. While those who understand social psychology maintain stronger, healthier interactions. Someone who constantly makes themselves available without maintaining any sense of value or boundary often gets taken for granted. Meanwhile, individuals who understand how to balance availability with a sense of exclusivity are often perceived as more desirable. This applies in friendships, romantic relationships, and even professional connections. Applying these lessons in everyday life requires a shift in mindset. Instead of assuming that effort alone will lead to success, individuals must start thinking in terms of strategy. Understanding how perception shapes reality allows people to control their own narratives rather than letting others define them. Learning when to be assertive and when to step back ensures that opportunities are seized at the right moment. Building alliances rather than expecting solo effort to be enough creates a network of support that enhances success. Those who succeed in any field do so not because they blindly follow the rules but because they understand which rules can be bent or rewritten. They control information flow, ensuring that they reveal only what is necessary while keeping their true strategies hidden. They remain unpredictable, forcing others to react to them rather than the other way around. Most importantly, they act decisively, recognizing that hesitation is the biggest enemy of success. Power is always in motion, and those who fail to recognize its underlying mechanics will always be controlled by those who do. The individuals, companies, and leaders who rise to the top are not necessarily the most deserving or hardworking, they are the ones who understand the hidden structures of influence and position themselves accordingly. Whether in business, politics, entertainment, or everyday social dynamics, those who master these principles shape their own destinies, while those who ignore them are left wondering why success never seems to come their way. Power is not about deception or manipulation, it is about understanding reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Many people go through life assuming that if they simply work hard, follow the rules, and stay morally upright, they will be rewarded. But the world does not operate on fairness alone. It rewards those who understand the dynamics of influence, perception, and strategic action. Those who recognize this truth position themselves to succeed, while those who ignore it are left wondering why their efforts never lead to the outcomes they expect. The reality is that passivity leads to stagnation, People who wait for opportunities, expect recognition without positioning themselves properly, or believe that talent alone will bring them success often find themselves overshadowed by those who are more strategic. Action is the defining trait of those who rise to the top. It is not always the most skilled, the hardest working, or the most intelligent who succeed, but those who understand how to navigate the system, the ability to see the hidden rules of the game, adapt to changing circumstances, and take decisive action at the right moments separates those who lead from those who follow. History is full of examples of individuals who understood that they had to shape their own narrative rather than let others define them. Steve Jobs did not wait for Apple to invite him back. He built his credibility outside of the company, proving his value before positioning himself for a return. Elon Musk does not wait for industries to evolve. He forces them to by aggressively pushing ideas that others hesitate to pursue. Oprah Winfrey did not sit back and hope for an opportunity in television. She took control of her image, built alliances, and transformed herself into a media empire. These figures did not passively wait for success to come to them. They took deliberate action, understood perception, and shaped their own destinies. In contrast, there are countless examples of talented people who never reached their potential because they believed that their skills alone would carry them forward. Artists, entrepreneurs, and professionals who had all the ability in the world but failed to position themselves strategically, network effectively, or take action at critical moments found themselves overshadowed by those who did. This is not about luck, it is about playing the game with awareness and intention. This principle applies to every aspect of life. In business, it is not always the best product that wins but the company that understands marketing, branding, and consumer psychology. In politics, it is not always the best policies that get implemented but the leaders who know how to rally support and frame narratives effectively. In personal relationships, it is not always the kindest or most giving people who are valued most, but those who understand the balance between availability and exclusivity. Perception is power. If you do not control your own narrative, someone else will shape it for you. This does not mean being dishonest or manipulative, it means being intentional about how you present yourself to the world. It means understanding that people judge based on what they see, and crafting your image in a way that aligns with your goals. If you want to be respected, act in a way that commands respect. If you want to be seen as a leader, position yourself as one. If you want opportunities, create the conditions where they come to you rather than waiting for them to appear. Being passive is the greatest disadvantage in any competitive environment. The workplace does not reward quiet effort, it rewards those who make their achievements known and position themselves for advancement. Society does not automatically elevate those who deserve success, it elevates those who take the necessary steps to claim it. The people who wait, hesitate, or assume that things will naturally work out in their favor are always at the mercy of those who are actively shaping events. Hesitation is often the biggest obstacle to success. Many people see opportunities but fail to act out of fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of making the wrong decision. But those who achieve great things understand that inaction is a greater risk than failure. Every successful entrepreneur, leader, or creator has made mistakes along the way. But what separates them from everyone else is that they acted despite uncertainty. They understood that success is not a straight path but a series of calculated risks and adaptations. Control over one's life is not something that is granted, it is something that is taken through deliberate action. The most powerful people in the world are not necessarily the ones who were born into privilege or given easy opportunities. They are the ones who understood how to take control of their own story, who built alliances, who learned to navigate the rules of power, and who never waited for permission to act. They played the game, rather than letting the game play them. This is not just about ambition or success in traditional terms. It applies to anyone who wants control over their own life, whether in career, relationships, personal development, or creative pursuits. Those who understand the mechanics of power, perception, and action are the ones who shape their own destinies. Those who fail to recognize these principles often find themselves trapped in cycles of frustration, wondering why things never seem to go their way. The question, then, is simple. Are you playing the game? Or are you being played? Are you actively shaping your own future? Or are you letting others dictate your path? Are you waiting for success to come to you? Or are you taking the necessary steps to claim it? These are not just theoretical questions, they are the decisions that separate those who achieve from those who remain stagnant. Every day presents a choice: to act or to wait, to shape perception or to let it be shaped for you, to take control or to be controlled. Those who recognize this choice and make the conscious decision to take action are the ones who ultimately succeed. Those who ignore it remain at the mercy of those who do not. The world rewards those who move, who strategize, and who take ownership of their own story. It does not reward those who wait for things to happen. Success is not about waiting for the right moment, it is about making the moment right. Power is not about waiting for someone to recognize your worth, it is about positioning yourself so that recognition becomes inevitable. Influence is not about hoping people see you a certain way, it is about actively shaping the way they perceive you. Those who understand this create the lives they want, while those who ignore it spend their lives wondering why success seems to belong to others. The choice is always there. The only question is whether you are willing to make it. So now you know. The world does not operate on fairness. It is not the most hardworking or the most talented who rise to the top, it's the ones who understand the game. The ones who know when to move, when to wait, and when to strike. Those who control perception, master strategy, and take decisive action are the ones who shape their own destiny. You've just unlocked knowledge that most people will never fully grasp. But knowledge alone is not enough. What separates those who succeed from those who remain stuck is action. So ask yourself right now, are you playing the game? Or are you being played? Are you actively taking control of your life? Or are you waiting for opportunities that may never come? Everything you do from this moment forward will determine whether you step into power or stay where you are. You have two choices. You can walk away from this video, go back to your usual life, and continue believing that effort alone will lead you to success. Or, you can take what you've learned today and start making moves that position you as a player, not a pawn. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button, it helps this content reach more people who need to hear the truth. If you want more deep insights on power, strategy, and influence, subscribe right now and make sure notifications are on. That way, you never miss a single lesson that could change the course of your life. And if you found true value in what you just watched, consider leaving a super thanks donation. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the kind of content that others are too afraid to talk about. Now, the game is in your hands. What will you do next?